The bare truth. I decided that I need to tell my husband about something that happened. I'm not even sure to begin, but one thing I'm really just not sure about. Can I ask him to forgive me? Or do I just tell him and let him express his feelings? Part of me feels like asking him will pressure him to saying certain things, but if I don't ask, he may think that I don't even want him to forgive me. Since the lockdown, I've been working from home, and for a number of reasons it has been stressful. A while back I got the okay to go to the office once a week. Around the same time a friend of mine started coming in that day too. We started going for coffee and talking. There isn't even anyone else there. Also, we talked on the instant message thing. I don't know, I started looking forward to seeing him on the office day. And I've been to his apartment too. A few people know, but they would never say anything. I never said I think it's okay. I'm not proud of what I've done. There is nothing that justifies it. I can't sleep and I have really bad anxiety. I would be horrified if it were reversed. I am going to tell him. I just don't know how to do it or where to start. I understand that I don't get to control his reaction, but I'm still worried about it. I'm just in a really bad place right now. I was sort of hoping that someone had been through this and it worked out in the end. This is just making me more anxious. If it were reversed, I wouldn't want to know anything about it, just that he was sorry and still loved me. I don't think I could talk about it like that. I'm ashamed of the entire thing. Nobody at work knows. The office is empty, everyone is working from home. There isn't any gossip there. I thought it would go without saying that it isn't still happening. How could I even think about asking my husband to forgive me if I was still seeing him? We still work together, but I stopped going to the office, so I am not seeing him. We don't even really work in the same section, so we don't need to communicate for work. I know as well as anyone the mess I've made. Our anniversary is later this month and it should be a celebration of 20 years, and I'm completely terrified of the date now. It is absolutely terrible what I've done and I am not proud. We have kids too and I have no idea how this will affect them, and I feel unimaginable guilt for that. I can't sleep, I have trouble eating, and he knows something is wrong, and what's worse is that it's going to be worse for him. I know that, and he didn't even do anything to deserve it. It wasn't my husband, I just felt lonely and isolated. My marriage isn't a series of denials. We were sleeping together, there weren't any whips, leather or chains involved. There are so many assumptions here. I was afraid to do it. I can't help that I did it now, but how can that be compared to confessing something like this? And I did end it okay, I felt horribly guilty and ended it. And you know what? It didn't help. I still feel an overwhelming sense of guilt and shame. I love my husband and it breaks my heart that I did this to him. I am not a callous, hateful person, I'm really not. I don't know what to say, it was more than once. He's never suspected anything. He just thinks I've been feeling a bit depressed. I've been tested for STD and I don't have any. I understand that many here have been deeply hurt in the past and I am sorry that it happened to you. I can't measure up to a standard that says if you felt remorse then you wouldn't have done it in the first place. I never said that my husband made me feel lonely, I just said that I was feeling lonely. That is the truth. I get the impression that the only timeline acceptable here is one where the only reason was my burning desire to engage in depraved physical acts with the intent of destroying my husband. Well, there isn't a single timeline where that would be the truth. That isn't how it happened. I didn't have a plan, not even a disorganized one. I liked his company, I developed feelings, and I didn't think they would go anywhere. Even the afternoon that I went to his place, I didn't think. This isn't blame shifting, it is all my fault. My husband is going through the same difficult time as everyone else. I have no special claim to that. This has me quite emotional as I have been reading your responses all day and I have seen the hurt so plain in all of people's words. I have to accept that I did this to my husband. When I was doing it, I figured he would never find out. My head wasn't in the right place and I thought I could just balance things and I minimized what I was doing. Day to day, I convinced myself it was no big deal. He was a friend, but nothing more than that. It wasn't a plan to hook up. I started going to work first and I told him that he could ask for permission. Not a lot of people know that you can. I wasn't trying to get a date or anything. There has been a lot of isolation this year and I wanted to be a bit social. We are in our early 40s, he's a bit younger but not a lot. We were friends before, as in that he had been over for a few Christmas season parties we have for our friends every year. I didn't really see him outside of work other than that. I was lying to myself and everyone around me. I could never apologize for the number of lies I've told over the last number of months. I seriously lost track and I even started to believe them, even the biggest ones. I am going to tell him. I don't care if it isn't the easiest way. I am so sick of the lying, and if I don't tell him my marriage becomes just another lie. I can't tell him when the kids are home. They are more than old enough to get what's going on. It's not fair to tell him while he's working. So, I don't know when. I suppose there is no perfect time, but there is a wrong time. Good Lord, if he wants to get a DNA test on our children he can go right ahead. He won't be disappointed. They're both his. Also, I don't know what goes on between other people, but we never talked about my husband. We certainly never mocked him, and I don't find it amusing. There really is no right answer. Someone will be ready to call me defensive for whatever I say, and that isn't constructive or helpful. People make mistakes, people do horrible things, and I have done both. But I'm still a person. I have feelings and I know when people are just trying to be mean to me. I will answer the constant call for me to quit my job once. Well, guess what? I don't have the type of job you just quit and start somewhere else at the same level. In the real world, when you quit, you get no unemployment insurance. I don't have time to start a new career. I'm not going to get into what I do, but it isn't something you just quit. We have 2 kids who will be starting college and lots of other commitments. Quitting would make quite the other mess, and no, his salary will not cover our expenses. And what if he does want a divorce? No, I'm without my career. Supporting myself how? Or is that just the point? I'm not supposed to be able to do that. Is this supposed to be my punishment? The building we work in has 22 floors and an annex. I work in the annex and he works in the other side. You need keycards to enter the floors. It won't be that hard to avoid him. In time, I can look for a transfer if we decide to relocate as a family, but quitting is just about the worst option if we stay married or get divorced. There isn't really much else to say about that. The truth is that I don't know how he's going to react, and neither do any of you. A non-gaslighting answer would be something along the lines of listen to him and don't make assumptions. Gaslighting would be he's going to want a DNA test on his children. Could you imagine dragging your teenage children off for a DNA test while telling them about the awful what their mother is? It's horrific. It's also not meant to be helpful. It's meant to make me doubt things and feel awful. I'm this reality. The children were planned and there is no doubt who the father is. Anyways, I am going to tell him tonight when he gets home. I don't know what he's going to say, but all I can do is listen and be remorseful. Update: I did tell him and it was a difficult weekend. He didn't really get angry with me. He's mostly shocked and disappointed in me. He had a hard time believing it. And no matter what I say, he keeps wanting to blame himself. It always comes back to that. He didn't kick me out or call me any names. We spent the weekend together and he wants a lot of physical contact, like holding hands and putting his arm over me when we went to bed. We only talked about the affair the first night for the most part. He's very upset about it but is still being himself and trying to make me laugh. He's worried about me. It makes me feel guilty that he's worried about how I'm feeling, but that's just the way he is. He still loves me, but a lot of trust has been broken and I don't know if he will ever trust me again like he did. He's picking up the kids right now and he doesn't want any hint dropped to them. I don't think he is ignoring his pain. He just expresses it differently. We talked well into the early morning on Friday about and spent most of Saturday lying in bed. I don't think it's easy in a lot of ways for him, and it affects relationships that go beyond just ours. There is nothing simple about it, and he isn't a wimp for not berating me or throwing me out on the street. I didn't get away with anything either. I have some pretty awful realities to face and I'm not even sure how I'm going to do it. I don't want to rug sweep anything, but it isn't all up to me. I feel like complete garbage. Our anniversary is in less than 10 days. He made me think that we weren't going to make a big deal out of it. He just made reservations at a place we go to sort of often and told me not to make a big deal out of gifts. But he didn't really tell me what he was planning. While we're at the restaurant, our friends and family are showing up at the house to surprise me when we get home for our 20th anniversary. There have been a lot of restrictions and bubbles and lockdowns, and he knows I've been missing this type of social thing and he organized it as a gift. It couldn't be more perfect and I completely ruined it. Oh, and I've been told that I am to act surprised and any tears are tears of joy. This isn't a debate. I can tell when he's serious. On top of that, he had invited the guy from work who I had to uninvite. Once again, I messed up everything. I didn't know what to expect. I've spent weeks looking this stuff up online and asking questions, but that was just me trying to control the situation. I need to accept that I can't control it and that it is not healthy to try to. I am trying to be supportive and help him get the help he needs if he's willing to get it. I need to work on myself too, and that means letting go of the need to control and yes, manipulate things. I appreciate all the concern about my professional life, but the truth is that if I want to cheat, then I can cheat. It doesn't matter where I work or if I work. I need to not want to, and if I can't have that, then I shouldn't be married anymore. The affair partners. I'm not still friends with him. That isn't even a possibility after what happened. I am mature enough to be able to see him or briefly speak to him. I'm not on bad terms with him. Just being friends never works after that. He isn't married and he's single. Before anyone starts with the how do you know stuff, I've known him for years and I've been to his place. I don't talk about him because this isn't about him. What happened after my confession? We talked about it all night and then barely moved from bed the next day. I don't mean sleeping together, I mean no motivation to move. All I said was that he didn't throw me out or hurl abuse at me. How can anyone translate that to indifference? I am very worried about him. When I say he is very upset, I mean he has been crying, and the only other time I can remember him crying is when the dog passed. I never said stoic, indifferent, okay with it or anything like that. I'm not a perfect person, and yes, I'm selfish, and I don't know if I'm a narcissist or not. I've read that a true narcissist wouldn't consider the possibility, but I really don't know. I do care for my family and I feel about as low as I can possibly feel. I'm not going to pretend this is the first selfish thing I've ever done. It's the worst, but not even close to the first. But I want to get better and I want to work on myself. I don't even know why I keep coming back here. I think part of me wants to read nasty and hopeless things because that's how I feel. My husband calls it my inner masochist. He says it joking, but maybe it's not a joke. I don't talk about issues in my marriage because I don't think they give me the right to cheat. I said I was feeling lonely because that was the overwhelming emotion I was going through at the time. I enjoyed his company and, as brief as it was, it felt like an escape from that. My marriage wasn't perfect before the affair, but whose is? You have to work on it sometimes, and I just wanted it to be easy. We have issues. We have issues with being distant sometimes, and we have issues in bed. I read that whole thing and I don't think I'm remarkable enough for the effort. I posted here because I couldn't sleep and was worried that telling him would be just one more manipulation. I had already made up my mind to tell him and I wasn't looking for approval. I didn't tell him just so I could sleep well again, and for the record, I'm still not sleeping well. I've been up for hours and it's like 6 in the morning here. I told him because I couldn't live with our marriage being a lie. I don't know what to say about the guy I was with. I don't think it really matters. I can't even say it was impulsive. Maybe it finally hit like an impulse, but it wasn't a single decision. I was attracted to him. I can't help that. I don't want to dwell on him because I want to move forward. Not that all the awful things can be erased. I haven't talked about moving forward. It's not fair to put that sort of pressure on him. One thing at a time, and this one thing is probably going to take a lot of time. He doesn't even like me hinting that he can have a bit of space if he needs it. He thinks that means I don't want to be around him. As for what I am willing to live with, a lot of that stuff is trivial to me. If he wants to read my emails, he can read them. I'm sure he'd just get more bored than anything else. I can understand that our trust has been broken, but it won't be rebuilt on surveillance. If it made him feel better in the short term, I can't imagine him wanting to live like that for very long. Either way, I doubt he thinks I'm dumb enough to leave a trail of emails anyways. He can go through my phone if he wants to, but if he doesn't trust me, then finding nothing will just make him more suspicious. I don't know how to rebuild trust. I can only take it one day at a time. I want to see a therapist with him to help find solutions which can offer some solace. As for what I'm willing to live with, I'm willing to live through a lot. If that means some bad times, then they are bad times we will have together, as long as he loves me and feels affection for me. If we want revenge, then this isn't going to work. You can't have revenge on someone you love. It's never enough and it's always empty in the end. It's never going to be even and fair here. If he feels like the only way to appease him is to give up things that I love and make me who I am, then he would have no affection left for me. He would have every right to that emotion. It would be my fault. I would be extremely sad, but I would accept that I messed things up beyond repair. This whole quit your job thing just has this tone that it's some sort of sacrifice to offer up as a price to pay. Only pay to who? We didn't even have jobs when we met in college. Our accomplishments are ours together, and we both take a sense of pride in what we have and what we build together. Some make it sound like married people are complete strangers who just meet in bed every night. I'm working from home now. The building isn't even going to be open next year. I didn't just run into him at work. I asked him to come in. He would have never been there if I didn't, and he's not going to keep going if I'm not. The entire quit your job thing is a complete non-issue. The only purpose it could serve is vindictive, and that is a path I am not willing to go down. I am sure anyone who has tried revenge is divorced by now. You can't keep someone by taking things away. They will just resent you, and it doesn't matter how justified you feel you are in it. Forgiveness is about putting that aside, and it is a lot to ask. I get that, and that's why I have not asked him to say those words. What can I do right now? He wants me to be more physically available, and I am going to be that. That's a start, and it is something. I'm going to check in when I'm out without having to be asked. I will try to be more honest and patient. I don't expect perfection, but maybe something positive will come out of this. I am not infatuated with him anymore. We probably have a very different idea of attraction, so there isn't much point in getting too much into that. I'm done with all that, and there isn't any chance of it starting up again. Even letting me know that he still wants something is completely unattractive to me after the way we left things. I don't know what the difference really is in those scenarios. I had been to his place before without anything happening. It's not like he asked me to come to his place for bonding. I had worn a sundress and sandals, somehow forgetting how cold the AC is at work. I told him I was going home because I was cold, and we got to talking, and he said to just come work at his place for the afternoon. I went and set up my laptop, and so did he, and I even do some work. I had a glass of red wine, but only a glass. It wasn't until I was about to leave that he came up behind me and whispered in my ear, and we started kissing, and then things got heated. Our relationship had turned inappropriate before that moment, but it was never destined to become physical. I have told him, it sucks and I hate doing it. I feel like I'm torturing him when we talk about it. He doesn't really believe I'm telling him the entire truth either, or why should he? He doesn't trust me anymore. Someone asked me what I wouldn't be able to live with, and I said that I wouldn't be willing to live with someone who lost love and affection for me. I'm not content to be miserable forever. I'm sorry. If he needs revenge on me, he can get it, but it would cost him, and it's better to just say there is no future now. I didn't say that I wasn't willing to work with anything else. I don't have any contact with him. It isn't even a thing. If I want to get in contact with him, which I don't, then where I work makes no damn difference. Someone asked me how it happened, and for whatever reason I told him. Did anyone expect something I could be proud of? Yes, I dressed to look pretty for him. Yes, I knew I was flirting, and I knew that it was completely inappropriate. I had no reason to go there. That was good. I'm not proud of it and I hate myself for it. I've never blamed anyone else but myself. It's just a fact of what happened that if he didn't make a move, I never would have first. I don't need to quit my job and become his dependent to show that I'm sorry and have compassion. You just want me to quit because you know it would hurt me and you don't care that it would hurt my family too. Well, I do care about that. I was asked what the limits are. I'm sure that was just a trap, because nothing I said would have been acceptable. Well, maybe if I said he could shackle me in a tower and whip me twice a day. It's been a busy week. Our anniversary was on Wednesday. We had to get together, and it was nice really. Nothing fancy or over the top. My parents took the kids after. I was worried but no breakdowns. He isn't doing great but he isn't moping either. He says he still loves me, but also says there are things he's never going to get over. One day at a time is all we can really do. He's with his friends tonight, so I hope he's having a good time. There isn't any contact. The only time I've talked to him in over a month was to make sure he wasn't coming to the party, which he had no intention of coming to anyways. Making a display over it wouldn't change that I'm not talking to him or seeing him. We would never interact for any work either of us do. We don't even work for the same branch. His building is connected to mine by an annex, but really, it's pretty easy to avoid contact even if I were at the building. His keycard wouldn't even get into my area. We still have a lot to celebrate and be thankful for over the past 20 years. That was the focus of the night. Call it rug sweeping if you want, but I think it was less stressful for him to go through with it than not. I can't really switch places. I could say I would have done this or that, but I don't really know. I'd probably have a shorter fuse and I wouldn't care who knew what he did, but he isn't like that. I don't see the point in stressing him out over that. He isn't bottling everything up, he just hasn't been abusive. He's having a really hard time with the other guy having seen me naked, amongst other things. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know I can't undo it. I had no idea how much of his own self-worth he placed on me. I'm realizing it now and I don't know what to do about it. All the other stuff, like no contact or whatever, is easy for me. I'll ask him if he needs me to write a letter or whatever. I don't know, it seems like that's more contact than I even want with him. And why invite the drama? He still wants to sleep with me. I told him it was over and all the reasons that I told my husband and he doesn't care. What do you say to that? I figure nothing is better than something. I could never put my family through this again. I know I need help and I'm going to see a therapist and hopefully find out exactly what's wrong with me. It should have never happened in the first place. I've already said I'm not attracted to him anymore and it's because of stuff like this. Why would anyone be turned on by that? He could try all he wants. It's over and I'm not going to pursue that anymore. And I meant saying nothing to, I hate saying this, but my ex-boyfriend. I have been intimate with my husband since all this. It was a bit strange the first time, but it will get better. And I never said that he wasn't providing my physical needs as if he's paid by the hour. I said that we have had some issues in bed. They aren't new and they aren't one-sided. I didn't elaborate because they aren't the reason for the affair, and if I said anything, then they certainly would take that way. I wasn't seeking release. I've already said why it happened. Bonding got all wrapped up in it and did prolong it, but it wasn't the reason it happened in the first place. I knew when I was lying about how much we were texting and that it had turned inappropriate. When I started getting excited to see him, I knew it was not proper. Is that clear enough? I just didn't know it would happen that day and it would have just remained inappropriate flirting if he didn't make a move. Is that hard to understand? As for the bonding, I can't talk about that here. I can tell that a lot of you are pretty squeamish and sensitive about anything of the sort, and the triggers here are lighter than feathers. It was never my intention to trigger anyone, so that is best left in that. We had a difficult day yesterday. He's really paranoid and I don't blame him. He took a black light to all my clothes and made me explain this or that. And now I have a list of rules to follow, so there's that. We were friends. We had been friends for years. At first was just talking to him on the phone because they were doing a retrofit and I didn't like how the engineers always did stuff without asking. So, I was talking to him because he was the procurement agent and we had a common enemy. I didn't even know what he looked like, but he was personable. As it turned out, he was doing the lunchtime yoga thing they had in the building at the time and was usually on the mat next to me. Eventually it clicked that we had been speaking on the phone and we started going to lunch or coffee sometimes. But not just the two of us, there would be others there too. But we became friends. He doesn't work as a procurement agent now, in the same group, but at a level where we would never cross paths. We became friends out of work too. He had a GF at the time and I would see them at the gym and do stuff sometimes. When I started coming into work for a few days a week, I asked him if he wanted to come too. I didn't just run into him there. I'm a social person and my social life had become nothing. That's all. I wanted to see my friend. But something happened and I regret it. He doesn't want a timeline. He wants me to put a GPS thing on my keys. It is really difficult, and I want to be open. We agreed that he can check my phone with me for a list of callers and texts, but not read them. I have a list of approved numbers, and if I want to add one, then I clear it with him first. If any number that he doesn't recognize shows up, then he can either read it or check the number out. He doesn't have the right to my every private thought I share with my friends or if I visit an infidelity forum to vent, even if about him. I do have relationships with friends that go back to middle school, and he doesn't have the right to our thoughts. And he doesn't want that. He respects that much. I am okay with wanting to know where I am or where I'm going or who I'm seeing socially. Most times he's with me anyways. We don't have completely separate social lives. I'm bothered by some of the other things and how he spoke to me. I still have a right to my feelings, and being told that I can lose privileges if I talk back to him for requesting a spot check really hurt me. Maybe that makes me a remorseless bee, so be it. If I am as hostile as some seem to think, I would have left him last night. I know what I did is traumatic, and I am not judging him for any of the things he's asking for, even the stuff that would have made me hysterical in another time. I'm just feeling overwhelmed and anxious. I'm scared about what he's going to say to me when he gets home, or if he even loves me anymore. I know nobody would think so, but what I did traumatized myself too. I feel like a total failure to my family. I told him that it's never happening and to just move on. Maybe I should hate him, but I don't. I can't force myself to hate someone. Hate is an emotion and not a rational thought. I don't want to see him and I don't want to be friends with him, but I don't hate him. I'm not focusing on that because I said stuff I didn't mean and that I shouldn't have said. I can't take those things back. I wish I could, but that just isn't how it works. I've seen a therapist. It's only been 2 sessions and I'm being positive about the potential. My husband doesn't want to see anyone. I don't want to push him. Still, I hope he comes around. We have been together a long time. I don't think it's bad to have a professional perspective. No, we haven't been fighting constantly. Just the one blows up and some little things. I'm trying to be better and to do what he's asking. I felt really humiliated and I got upset with him, but I know he's traumatized. Just because I have feelings doesn't mean I don't know this. I don't feel great about being the cause of it all. It's difficult, that's all. Things haven't been that bad. I'm adjusting a bit. I went to the mall without telling him. I wasn't testing him. I just needed something and went out. I'm not going to do it again. We're going to his parents' house for Thanksgiving this weekend, so I'm looking forward to that. I am not sidestepping. Just anything I say will be taken to the point of hyperbole. Nobody encouraged this or waited with bated breath. I told her and said I would never ever do it again. I didn't even feel like I was having an affair. Yes, I realize how dumb that sounds. All she did is kept it to herself, like any friend would. She told me that I better not screw up my kids over this and was not any sort of cheerleader. We talked about issues in my marriage, but so what? We didn't huddle around a cauldron and talk about all the ways to hurt my husband. I'm not a puppet and I wouldn't be friends with anyone pouring poison in my ear. She listened to me. Most importantly, my husband doesn't have it in for either of them or have the expectation that either would betray my trust to him. There isn't anything here. Just like when I say I have no contact with that guy, there isn't anything else to defend. I agree with no contact and not being friends. I'm no presenting him with a letter, which is just inviting drama anyways, so that is the same thing. Emotions are complex, okay. I've also spent my life with him. He's the father of my children and I love him. I'm a flawed person, but he loves me too. I know he does, so that's why it's worth it. I've said bad things about my parents too, but I have never questioned my love for them. Heck, I've had fights with my friends where all sorts of hurtful things were said, but I still love them. He wants me to get better too. I am in therapy. That isn't a justification. It's just the truth. The things I did, which I am responsible for, led to the affair, but I couldn't have made that into a thought while it was happening. Certainly not one coherent enough to tell anyone I was planning something. I admitted all the flirting, even the times he accused me and I denied in the past 20 years. I don't mean going to the houses of men, I just mean maybe having a few drinks and laughing a bit much at stuff that isn't even funny. None of it ever got this serious, but it was all wrong. I apologized for it and committed to working on myself. My comment: the OP clearly cares for her husband and seems to be making an effort to make it work. But it seems to me that the effort is not because she loves her husband. It's because she loves the life they have built together. Their children's well-being, their wealth, their careers, their social circle, the support system, everything. I do think at all that if she could keep all that minus the husband, she would do so due to the resentment she expresses at the consequences of her actions. You were bored. Well, you sure don't seem to be bored now. I also get a feel that the OP controls the relationship. She seems to come here for a way to get over this in a way that her guilt diminishes with the least amount of damage. But I get the nagging feeling that she knows that it would be unlikely that her husband would flip the table and break up the marriage. So, how to get over this without costing my lifestyle too much? That is not conducive to a reconciliation.